Okay, so welcome. My name is Laura Hopkins. I am leading this presentation today, how to make an accessible Word document. In case you want to follow along with the document I'm using, I did post it in the Slack channel. It is under a horrible channel name called TEAM hyphen. You'll go in there, there's a Word document, and you can download it if you'd like. Otherwise, you can open any Word document you have if you just want to save it as test or trash or draft and work through it with me, or you can start from scratch. Okay, when we're talking about headings, just type some text to be a heading. We're talking about paragraph text, you can just type junk letters, it won't matter. Any questions before we jump in? Okay, both online and in person, would you raise your hand or give me a thumbs up if you are on a Mac? So about half the people in the room. How does it look online? Okay, so there are some differences as we go through between Mac and Windows users. So please speak up if you see something different than what I have. I'm on a Mac today, but most of it is very similar and you won't have any trouble following. But the things that are drastically different, I will stop and pull up the screenshots I have for Windows. All right, so let's get started. Let me see if I can get rid of this Copilot message. Stop. Okay, yeah, apparently I can't. So, all right. This is a Word document. Does it look accessible to you? It has a heading, right? Has a heading too, has a subtitle, has a picture. Color contrast is okay, must be font. Does anyone know how you really check to know if this Word document is accessible or not? There's two things you need to do. First is you go to View, which is up in your toolbar, and then you're going to click in the box that says Navigation Pane. Everybody click on Navigation Pane. Now, when you do that, a pane will appear to the left of your document. This looks a little bit different on Windows than on Mac. On Windows, you will have the word Headings. Click on Headings. On a Mac, it's the second button that's called a document map. And when you click on it, it will list everything that's tagged as a heading in that document. I have two things tagged as a heading. Neither one of them is my title. So is that accessible? No, it is not. Why are headings important? Does anybody know from an accessibility standpoint? Yes.
Well, I mean, that's what the screen reader will latch onto and give an overview of the document.
Say it one more time for our online folks.
The headings are what a screen reader will kind of latch onto to give an overview of the document. So it gives the screen reader user an idea of the structure of the document.
Exactly right. Often those who use a screen reader will open a document or go to a website and just navigate by the headings. Show me the main sections in this page. Imagine if you were looking at a newspaper website. That's what you would do as a visual user, is look at the headlines to figure out which articles you want to read and which ones you want to skip. If we don't have headings, those using a screen reader have one option: listen to it from top to bottom. And you can't navigate back to the middle anywhere without starting over. So headings are critical. Plus, it really forces you to make sure your document is organized, right? If you're thinking about, okay, what's an H1? Heading 1, that's your title. What's an H2? What's an H3? The exact same thing is true for a web page. Every web page should have an H1, which is the title, followed by H2s. Now, let's just get this conversation about H1s out of the way. There's two schools of thought. One is a document has one H1 period, which is your title. The next level is an H2. So your main section headings would be H2s. There's another school of thought that you only have about 7 heading levels. You don't want to waste an H1 to be only used once. So it's okay to have your title as an H1 and your main section headings as an H1. Technically, is one wrong? I don't know. Which camp am I in? You use one H1. Because really, if you need 8 or 9 headings levels, your document's too complicated anyways. Okay, so you do it the way you want to do it. I'm going to say today there's one H1, and that's your title. Okay. Before we go into that, I want to talk about the other thing we look at when we're looking to see if a Word document is accessible or not. I'm going to close out of this pane by clicking the X. If you will look down at the bottom footer of your application, you will see it says Accessibility Investigate. If it says Accessibility Good to Go, you don't have to go investigate. But to investigate, you just click on it, just a left click. And a pane will open up on the right. Sorry, I don't know how to move that. That will show you things that you need to go check. So it's showing that we have an instance of insufficient color contrast. It's showing that I have missing alt text on images, just a couple of things that I need to deal with. I'm going to close the Accessibility Assistant and show you a different way to get to that same pane. If you click on Review in your toolbar at the top, and then click on Check Accessibility, and Windows users, I think you hit the button that gives you a drop-down list, you click on Check Accessibility again, you get the same pane. If this is already the way you get there, that's perfectly fine. It's just two different ways to get to the same information. Any questions about that? Is any of that new to anybody? Okay, so some yeses, some nos. All right. I'm going to close my checker, and we're going to go up to the top of my document. Okay, let's pretend, please, that this title 1, my heading 1, my title is formatted exactly the way I want it to look. I went and I said, I want this font and I want it this size and I want it bold, blah, blah, blah. It's perfect, except it's not tagged as an H1. Okay, so what we do is be sure you're on your home row. Let's get our style pane open. So if you're on a Mac, you just click the button that says style pane. If you're on a Windows machine, this area that has the buttons has a pop-out button at the bottom right corner. It may come up with a pop-up that lets you say you want recommended styles or all styles. Pick all, so you have all to choose from. And then you will also get this pane, but it's a floating pane, usually, that you can drag it and put it where you want it. Everybody with me so far? Any questions online? Okay. So if your text already looks the way you want it to look, when you click on it, see where it says current style up at the top of my style pane? That's telling me that this text is currently styled as normal, which we already knew because it wasn't in our navigation pane. So I'm going to highlight the text that I want to be my title, and then I'm going to tell you a secret. You do not use the title tag because it's not a title tag, even though it says title tag. I'm sorry, I can't fix it. If you save it as a title tag and then save it as a PDF, it will be a P tag, and P just means paragraph, just body text. So normal is the way it would read. So we want it to be a heading 1, but I don't just click on the heading 1 button, or it's going to format it the way that button is already formatted. Because I want it to look like the way I've already made it look, I'm going to click on the down arrow that is on that heading 1 button, except I messed up. When I click the down arrow, I have the option to update. Update to match selection, which means it's going to look exactly like it looks right now, but it's going to be tagged as a heading 1. You can do that same step using the big buttons. So if I go find my heading 1 button in my toolbar, I can right click and say update to match. So now it still looks like it looked a minute ago, but it's tagged as a heading 1. And if I save it as a PDF, it will be tagged as an H1. Everybody good there? Okay. I'm going to move down to this next main heading. What heading level will this be? 2. Yes. So I'm going to highlight it. It already looks the way I want it to look. I'm going to go to my heading 2 button and click the down arrow and say update. Now, I don't have to update my heading 2 style anymore. I've already told the computer, this is what all of my H2s are going to look like. So now I just go find all of my H2s, so highlight it, and then push the H2 button. And that's true whether it's the H2 in your style pane or the H2 up in your toolbar. Makes no difference. All right, so I'm just going to highlight them all and hit H2. Now I want to go look at my navigation pane again. I want to see those headings. So view, navigation pane, document map for a Mac user, or headings for a Windows user. Now I have headings. All right. You want to know the benefits of using headings in addition to making it accessible? You can use that to navigate your document. Just imagine if this is an 80-page Word document, you now have an index, basically, a table of contents. Oh, guess what? This is also how you create a table of contents. So we just go back up to our title. I want to insert a table of contents. That's going to be under references. Let me move my Word away from my Zoom toolbar. References. I'm going to click the down arrow on table of contents. I don't like the default because the default table of contents includes the title, which makes my title repeat itself. And I don't like the way that looks. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my table of contents and hit custom table of contents. We do not use tab leader dots. Does anybody have a guess why? Because when a screen reader reaches that, it's going to say dot, 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 2, dot, 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 12. It's going to read everyone out loud. So don't use those. Okay. And then I'm going to go to options. And instead of starting with H1, I'm going to take out that number 1. And I'm going to say, I'm going to start with my H2. And you can choose how many levels you want to actually appear in your table of contents. You don't have to have all of your heading levels in your table of contents. You can customize that any way you want. Yes, we have a question.
Is there an alternate we could use for those dot leaders? Because they help with other, like cognitive issues and things. And it feels like a lot to give up.
Okay, so if you're going to pick a solid line, replace, you can, I believe, come in here. I think what you would have to do is, if you're going to save it as a PDF, artifact it. Okay. In Word, I think it's going to say line, but line is better than dot, 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 whatever it is. But if you're saving it as a PDF, you can highlight it and artifact it, and then it will skip it. Okay. Everybody doing okay? So let me ask, do you want to go through any of that again? I fear if this is the first time you've seen table of contents and headings, this may seem a little overwhelming. Would you like us to go back and do it again? No? Okay. Well, let me show you a few more benefits of using the heading styles. Let's say your boss comes back to you and goes, hey, I know you just created this 50-page Word document, but I really hate the way those H2s look. I want you to make them blue. So, no problem. we're going to go to our styles. And this time under heading 2, we're going to select modify instead of update. So we're going to modify it, which just means tell me what you want this to look like. And you can pick your font and your size and your color and whether it's justified or not, all of your normal formatting, and say okay, and it will update every heading 2 in that document almost instantaneously. Super simple. Cool? So like most things in accessibility land, it's not just about accessibility. It really is helpful in a lot of different areas of our jobs. Okay, so if you are typing a new document, you have a choice. You can modify your H1 and set it the way you want it to look and then type text that has that tag. Or you can type it the way you've always typed it, select it, go to that H1 button, right click and say update to match. So it doesn't matter. You can do it whichever way you think is the most easy. Right? That is the single biggest thing about Word accessibility, is having headings. Now, when you use headings, you have an H1 in my world, one H1, and then the big sections are H2s. And then a subsection would be an H3. And you should have multiple H3s under an H2. If it's just one paragraph, you don't have a heading tag. When you go down in order, you have to stay in chronological order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you're going up, you can skip. So I might go from a heading 5 back up to a heading 3, or from a heading 4 to a heading 2. It's okay to skip numbers going up, but you cannot skip going down. You don't get an error in Word for that, but if you save it as a PDF, it will say inappropriate nested heading. So you'll need to fix it. You also will get an error if you have an empty heading. Let me show you what that looks like in your navigation pane. Would you check with the people online and make sure they can hear me okay? I'm trying to find my mouse. Okay, I'm over on this other. All right, finally found it. Okay, see that blank in my navigation pane? It's a space that has an H2 tag. So all you do is put your mouse on it in the navigation pane and say normal. That should be a normal style. It shouldn't be a blank heading. Okay. Easy enough, right? All right, let's keep going. I'm going to close out of my styles pane and I'm going to close out of my navigation pane. All right, let's talk about fonts. Who knows what Aptos is? What is it?
Well, when you open a Word document.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that when you open a Word document, then when I check the font style, it says Aptos.
It says Aptos, that's right. Surprise!
Default.
Default.
The new default.
It's a new Microsoft default font. I don't like it. But I didn't like Calibri either, which was the old Microsoft default font. They are very narrow fonts. And for people over 60 like me, I need stronger letters than that. We have an internal UT Arlington policy from our marketing team that says you will use Arial or Helvetica. I don't think it needs to be that strict. I like Verdana and a few others that are broader letters, but we don't use Aptos or Calibri as our default. So I don't want to have to come in here every time I start a document and modify my normal. So I changed my default font. You can do that in all of your Microsoft products. If you click on the Design tab, you will find a Fonts button. And when you select a font, you may then push the button that says Set as Default. And then it will default to that from then on. You can do the same thing in Excel and PowerPoint and maybe even Outlook. Now, one of the problems with Arial is there are words that are difficult to read, like the word I just typed on the screen. If you are using words that have a capital I followed by an L, it looks exactly the same. So look through your document, and it may be necessary for accessibility reasons for you to select a different font. In this case, I think Verdana is better. It makes that I look like an I instead of an L. Okay. There are times that you may also want to change the ligature of letters so that they don't run together. I'm sharing through the Access U, I guess I don't know if they're doing it through Zoom or Slack where they share all the course materials. I'm sharing our UT Arlington process guide for Word. We have a Windows one and a Mac one, and it goes into all of the conversation about ligature and that sort of thing, because we don't have time to talk about that today. But that's when your F's and G's and J's all start running together, okay? So just be sure that you have a good, strong font, not Aptos, not Calibri. All right. Lists. Let's talk about lists. When I select my text that looks like a list, is it a list, and how do you know? Does anybody think it's a list? It sort of looks like a list a little bit.
Looks like a list, but it's not a list.
It's not a list, that's right. And we know that because the list buttons are not highlighted.
Well, the other thing I noticed is the style's normal.
That's right, that's right. The problem here is I used pictures instead of bullets. So it was a lot of work to do something silly. But I just wanted to show you that that is not a list. It's important that lists are actually formatted as lists, because the screen reader will say a list of 5 items, item 1, right? A list of 3 items, and then give you each one. But it's equally important that you don't use bullets for items that aren't lists. Don't just bullet things because you like the bullet being there. That's when you would actually use a picture instead of a bullet. But these bulleted lists options, they're up here in your toolbar. They do a very good job of your accessibility tags. And when you save them as a PDF, you'll get your list tag, list item, list label, list body, okay? So that you don't have to worry about going and remediating that. However, I want you to be careful, because sometimes, let me make this go back to a solid bullet. When I indent again, it's a different looking bullet, right? So this dark black circle, the screen reader is going to say bullet. What do you think the screen reader is going to announce for this one? What did you say?
Bullet.
Bullet? Nope. What does it look like to you? Close. What else? No, so close. Oh,
Oh.
because it's an O. That's what it is. So don't use O for your bullets. Just make it a solid bullet. They're going to know it's another indent. It's a sub list. I think we have in our guide an actual list of how all of those bullets are announced. There's one that's a right arrow, and they announce it like pointy right arrow right. It's like the Indiegogo logo thing he was talking about yesterday. Before you use a bullet, be sure you know how it's going to be announced. All right. And it's on the internet. You can say, give me the chart, but I also believe it's in the guide I'm sharing with you. So don't use O's, because that can get really confusing. Okay, let's talk about alt text. So I know that there have been some alt text sessions. Has anyone in here attended one already this week? Okay, if I say anything that contradicts what you've already learned, let's talk about it. I'd be very interested. All right, so two different ways to get to the alt text input screen. You can either right click on the image and then go to view alt text. That will bring up the pane. Or I'm going to close it to show you the other way. When you select the image, you now have a picture format button on your toolbar that's available to you. It has an alt text button. Either way, it takes you to the same spot. You have two options. You can either type in your alt text or mark it as decorative. Should this be marked as decorative? No, it should not be marked as decorative. The rule is if there's text in the graphic that is not otherwise repeated immediately preceding or after the image, all of the text has to be in the alt text. The only exception are word clouds, but you still have to describe 3 dozen words that describe the weather, such as cold, hot, rainy. Give some examples. I want to talk about acronyms. How many of you are with an institution of higher education? Okay, so at UT Arlington, they say UTA logo. How would I type that? It's really not a trick question. Okay, if I type UTA all together, space logo, what's it going to read? UTA. UTA logo. That's not what I wanted to read. So if you are using an acronym where each letter is announced, you put in a space. So it will read U space T space A, right? UTA logo. There are acronyms that you don't want spaces in. We have something called the SAR Center. That is our Office for Students with Disabilities. SAR Center, all squished together. That's going to read SAR Center. That's what we want. OIT, Office of Information Technology, what's that going to read if I don't put spaces in there? OIT. Yeah. Now, sometimes people go overboard and they put U space T space A in the body of the document. And our marketing folks have gone, don't do that. And they're like, but it's going to say UTA. I'm like, yeah, we know. Now, if you're saving it as a PDF, you can go in and assign real text to it, but that's a PDF class. But just be aware in Word, every time we type UTA in real text, it's going to say UTA. And our students know that. But it is wonderful when you're sitting beside a student who is blind and they're listening to something on the web or a document and they hear it say UTA. I mean, they're just like, oh, you know, like someone knows my world. Someone is paying attention. Someone is following the rules. Yes, there's a question back here.
It was actually more of a comment around hashtags, what you're saying as well. Before hashtags were all in lowercase, but now we capitalize say for example, the hashtag has like 2 words. Then the each word would be capital, like the first letter would be capital.
Right.
And so I'm a screen reader user. And so when the screen reader announces it, it actually announces the proper word.
That's
rather than like a run-on. So I just wanted to see what you're saying.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. Okay. And I would be interested in your opinion on this as well, since you are a screen reader user. I've worked closely with a young African-American woman who is blind and an older white gentleman who is blind. And when it comes to what they want from alt text, they are at opposite ends of the spectrum. There is a legal requirement. If there is text in the image, you repeat the text unless you have it stated otherwise. But beyond that, there's a lot of leeway, right? He is of the opinion, don't waste my time, right? If it's not critical information, he doesn't want to have to listen to it. She likes that it says 3 college students in a coffee shop. There's laptops and mugs of hot chocolate on the table and steam is rising. She likes that. He hated that. So you're never going to make everyone happy all the time, and that's okay. But number one, don't leave any information out, right? Text has to be repeated. And then be sure you are conscientious. I started this position in December, and the very first thing I got to review was a holiday greeting card. And I had gone over to talk to them about accessibility, and they'd never heard of it before. So I get this email and it says Snowflake 1, Snowflake 2, Snowflake 33, Snowflake 60. And it just, oh my gosh, it was just painful to listen to. And I'm like, okay, lots of work. I recognize lots of work, but no, on the first snowflake, say a background of white snowflakes on an evening sky or whatever it was, and then mark all the rest as decorative. So you're giving them the information, but you're not wasting their time because nobody wants to sit through that. Right. Are we doing okay online? Any questions, comments? Did that line up with whoever took the alt text class here?
Yeah, they covered completely different things.
Oh,
And I love the acronym one.
okay, cool. Yay, I love it when I'm not repeating other people. Okay. So tables. Let's talk about tables. Tables are for data. Now, there are people that are going to disagree with this, okay? And let me just tell you up front, I accept that, I recognize that. But my job is I'm dealing with a college campus, 41,000 students, thousands of employees. I can't go into all of the details that, okay, well, you could do it if you will do these 7 other things, okay? I just need how are we going to do this? And this is the answer. Tables are for data only. If it's not data, you can't put it in a table. So you can't come in here to something like this and go name and have a blank spot for a person's name, and then title and then have a blank spot for a person's title. Yes, ma'am. That's okay. She has a question or a comment. Tell me I'm wrong. I can take it.
No, I completely agree with you. However, on the documents that I'm dealing with, we have a lot of basically infographics where you need columns for data. Like I had one with a row of like 3 columns above, and then there's 4 columns that relate to those 3 columns above. And I've not found a good way to do that in Word that is
Okay.
accessible, and I'm curious.
If you will email me what
Uh-huh.
you're talking about,
Yeah.
I'd be glad to see if me or my team can come up with
Yeah,
any.
because I've been
brainstorms.
fighting with it, and it's like it shouldn't be, but if I turn it into a graphic, then I have all sorts of text that would be too much for alt text.
Right.
So,
Build your hive, build your community, build your network, because we all have those things that we're looking at, like, I just can't figure it out, but we share it with each other and someone goes, oh, well, all you have to do is this and this and this. And they're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? I'm like, you're just in the weeds. It's your baby. So let a stranger look at it. Maybe I can't solve it, but I'd be glad to try. And I have 2 really great coworkers that are excellent at that kind of thing as well. Just as a side note, that's not what this class is about, but what we were talking about, where you had name and a blank and title and a blank, that's a form. And when you draw the line for the form, that's marked as decorative, and then you can save it as a PDF and make it a form. But that's a whole thing too, how to make an accessible, fillable PDF form. Okay, but you can't do it in Word. You can't use the developer tool. You can't use your word art. Okay, so tables are for data, and they're very accessible. You don't have merge cells, you don't have split cells. Unless, how many of you have access to LinkedIn Learning? Excellent. Chad Chilius has excellent PDF training courses available to you through LinkedIn Learning. Chelius. Chad Chilius and Dax Castro are the world's experts on PDF accessibility. Find them on Facebook. They posted one today that's hilarious. They replaced their faces with babies and they're talking about reflow. I'm sorry, but if you're an accessibility geek, it's just hilarious. But they will show you how you can split cells and then how you go in and set all the properties in your PDF document for it to be correct. But unless you have someone who's going to go learn how to do it, you can't use split or merge cells in Word. It won't be an accessible PDF. And that's my goal. I know we don't always save things as PDFs, but I can't control it after I send it to someone, and inevitably someone will save it as a PDF and share it. So, okay. Now, tables have to have alt text. So, if I select my table, just anywhere on it, I get a table design button and I get a table layout button. And I'm on a Mac and I don't see alt text. So I'm just going to click on the crosshairs button, right click and go to table properties. That's where I will find an alt text tab. You are not repeating the data from the table. The screen reader is going to read the table. You're just giving someone information so they can decide if they want to listen to it or not. Put information only in the title field, skip the description, a screen reader will never pick it up. So a list of employees' names and addresses. You know, third quarter sales for blah, blah, blah. Right? Short and sweet, just so someone can decide if they want to hear it or not. Yes.
What if that's the title above the table? Do we repeat it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You have to have alt text. There's no way to mark it as decorative.
Okay.
She was asking if you repeat the, if the title of the table is like a heading above or text above the table, do you still put in the alt text title? Yes. It says title. It should just say alt text. What is your alt text for this table? And same thing applies about acronyms, okay, for all alt text. Any questions online? Any questions, comments? Evening plans? Okay. I do have an accessibility with this table. Anybody know what it is? No guesses at all. Anybody online know what the problem is with this table? I do have insufficient color contrast on this table. This is a big battle in my world because our colors are orange and blue. And people think orange is just the best color ever. And it is not. It cannot be used against white and have sufficient color contrast. If you want to use it on black, go ahead, but not white. So I'm going to just change that because, you know, it's kind of driving me crazy. All right, so let's talk about color. When you type a URL in Word, if you put the www in front of it, it changed the color and it underscored it, underlined it. Depending on what color defaults you have will depend on what color that defaults to. If it's just the normal Microsoft default, that blue is fine. Mine's set a little bit darker, it's fine too. But be careful, because there are some that default to like a teal color, and that is not okay. Why is it underlined? Anybody know?
It's a link.
It's a link, yes. Is that an accessibility requirement that hyperlink text be underlined? It is.
Yeah.
Let me explain why, just in case you don't know. 1 in 12 people have some type of color blindness. In addition to that, as we age, I know, near and dear to my heart, as we age, our eyes start to lose elasticity and we need stronger contrast to literally be able to see. I had cataract surgery in February on one eye and March in the other. I still don't have my new prescription. I'm using readers to try to make up. I have struggled. I emailed a coworker this morning and said, why is this website listed in here twice? And he's like, Well, the first one has an S in front of it. Oh, shoot. I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I should have had better color contrast and a bigger font on that platform, right? It wasn't accessible to me. But back to color blindness. This is a good, strong blue against the white. This is a good, strong black against the white. By WCAG standards, we have to have a minimum contrast level of 4.5 to 1. Black on white is 21 to 1. This blue on this white is close to that. But what's the contrast level between this black and this blue? It's almost nothing. It's like 2 point something to 1. So if you are colorblind and you didn't have that underline, you might not know that the text changed colors. It might just all look the same color. So that underline is what tells some people, this is hyperlinked, click on it. So knowing that, do you underline text that is not a hyperlink? No. No, you don't. If you need to emphasize it for some other reason, make it bold, make it italics, do something else. But an underline means this is hyperlinked. All of these things that we've been talking about equally apply to web pages. So when you pull up a web page and you see all these different colored text on the page, if they don't have hyperlinks when the page is loaded, if they are not underlined when the page is loaded, how is someone who's colorblind going to know which text is linked and which isn't? They won't.
Right.
The underlines have to be there when the page loads. Okay. Let's talk about the easy way to know if we have sufficient color contrast or not. I'm going to highlight my text here after I put my readers back on. I keep losing my mouse. Okay. When you highlight your text and you go click on the color palette button, if you are on a newer version of Microsoft Word, you have a high contrast only option. You click on that and it says, here are all of your choices. Use any of these that you like. But if you don't, it's okay. If you're on a white background, skip the first column. Don't use gray on white. Just recognize that's bad, okay? Otherwise, stay on the bottom row. You'll always be fine. In addition to that, you can use the first standard color, which is a burgundy. If you need to use a red, that's the one you use. And you can use the last 3. Those will all give you sufficient color contrast against white. Now, if you start changing your background color, you're going to have to get a checking tool to check. But the new high contrast only option gives you a lot more choices. So if you don't have that button yet, you might see if you can update to the latest version. Any questions about color contrast, hyperlinked text? Okay, we have to talk about hyperlinks one more time. I'm going to highlight my hyperlink. And I'm going to right-click on it, go to hyperlink, and then edit hyperlink. So I highlighted it, I right-clicked, went to hyperlink in the menu, and then edit hyperlink. You need to put in a screen tip. Who does a screen tip help? People like me. What's going to happen if I click on this? Yeah. Go to, visit, right? You're giving someone a clue as to what's going to happen if they click on that link. All right. Nope. Nope. She asked if there was a semantic we should be using, and it's just real text. Okay. Let's see. I think that's it for hyperlinks. Okay. So now I want to check my accessibility again. Yes. Yes, just wait for the microphone.
Sorry. One other thing for hyperlinks is never use click here
Yes, yes.
because you have no idea where you're going. Give some idea about where it's going. This one has the URL, but for the PDF of registration
Right.
or something.
Right. So what she was saying is, put a descriptor that is not generic. You can't have click here, view more info. People with screen readers often navigate by links. And if all they hear is view more, view more, view more, or read more, read more, read more, well, it's a WCAG failure. It's out of compliance. And there's a real difference between me as a higher ed being accessible and me as a higher ed making accommodations. When I make accommodations, I have to already be accessible, right? At our school, and I assume at all schools, students cannot actually get services from our SAR Center unless they are registered. They have gone, they've disclosed their disability, and then the SAR Center tells the faculty the student needs X amount more time or whatever it is. But a student does not have to go register at the SAR Center if I, as a faculty member, am using insufficient color contrast. I'm failing to meet compliance, right? I can get an OCR complaint, Office of Civil Rights. I can get sued personally, class action lawsuit, and the list is very long of the bad things that can happen to me. So if you're talking to faculty or employees, be sure they understand that this is not optional. This is what we are going to do. And this is the minimum. We are not asking for pie in the sky. Sometimes people will say to me, well, you're not happy unless we're fully compliant. And I say, no, I'm not happy unless we have met the minimum that's required. Just the minimum. I'm not asking for AAA WCAG. I'm not asking for site improved best practices or ARIA best practice or a whole list of things I could be asking for. I'm saying, let's meet the minimum in hopes that we then can do other things, right? Someone said to me at lunch today, compliance isn't enough. True, I agree, but I have to get there first, okay? And I'm very fortunate at UT Arlington. I've been in this role since December 2018, and by this December, we expect to be there. All of our course content, all of our websites, all of our digital signage, all of our communications, everyone's going to know what it means to be accessible. It's taken us a long time, but you can't get to that unless you took that first step, right? So if you are not yet down this road, get on the road. I have lots of time, so can I divert off of Word for a moment? Go ahead. Did you have a comment?
One back to the links, but go ahead.
Okay. I think I forgot what I was going to say. That's okay. Let's talk about links. Go ahead.
Well, what I've, sorry, I'm holding it. What I've always heard is that the best practice for links, this one is really short, but in general for links, like say you're linking to a Google Doc, like,
Right.
Guide to Accessible Word, that you would type the words Guide to Accessible Word, use the hyperlink to put the tag, to put the URL in there so that if a screen reader is reading it, it's going to read Guide to Accessible Word, not that long, horrible string that you
Right,
get. So
right.
how is that different from the tooltip, which I had just now learned about? I didn't ever try that.
Okay, so now, because that was just such a short hyperlink earlier,
Yeah.
it was fine. But yes, if you had a big old long thing that you didn't want to have to put out there, you can put text to display, which is your real text. So I put uta.edu. My address that it's going to go to is https://go.uta.edu/ERA. But they didn't have to listen to that, right? And then the screen tip says, visit us at UTA.
Okay.
Okay. And you can always select your hyperlink and then go edit any of that. Just right click hyperlink and go to edit. Now, if you have archived Word documents, it is likely that a lot of your hyperlinks are broken, right? Because it was register for this event, and then that event has passed, so it doesn't work anymore. But for whatever reason, you still have that document archived. Go in and remove the hyperlink. Keep the text, the real text, but remove the link because broken links are an accessibility issue. You can still have the information there, but you don't want it reporting as a broken link. Same is true for your PDFs. If it's something that has passed and those links aren't going to work, take them out. Okay. Okay. All right, so I want to check my accessibility again because it still says investigate down here. So I want to see what I have not fixed. I still have some hard to read context. Okay, contrast. So this is one of those examples that I would change to a short set of words and then hyperlink it. And then, of course, I would make it actually sufficient color contrast. All right, let's talk about how to save this as a PDF and it still be accessible. There is one more thing we have to do, and I don't usually think of it as an accessibility issue in Word, but if you save it as a PDF, it will be an accessibility issue. This will be very different on Mac versus Windows. So let's do the Mac side first. Go up to the very top where it says Word and click on File. And then Properties at the bottom. And then the second tab says Summary. Type in a title. This is real text. This may or may not match the name of your file. But when you save this as a PDF and open it in Adobe Acrobat, this is the text that will be in the tab at the top of Adobe Acrobat. So, and if you don't have it, it will kick out as an error when you run your accessibility check in Adobe. This is also where you put the author. Maybe it's you, maybe it's your department name, maybe it's a group email address. What you don't want is to put something out there that has a student's name, right? Or maybe someone who doesn't work there anymore. So there's a lot of metadata in these things, and it's important that you're giving out good information. In Word, a screen reader will not read anything in a header or a footer. So if this is a letter that I'm sending to a student that says, welcome, you've been approved to join our team as an intern. If the only place it says this is University of Texas at Arlington is in the header, they don't know that. But they know it if you put it here. All right. Don't confuse footers with footnotes. Footnotes are highly accessible in Word, but headers and footers are not. All right, so I have, okay, in Windows, you are going to go File Info. Let me see, I think I have a screenshot of this in my PDF. Oh. Okay, you go to File and then Info. And then in the pop-up window over in the far right column, there's one that says Title, and you type in the title. That is the same spot where you can add and remove author names. For you window users, did you find this? Okay. Let me come look. Right there. I know, it's teeny tiny. It is hard to see. And you just click in this box and type your title. And then further down in the list, you can add and remove authors as well. All right, now, I want to know, how do you save a Word document as a PDF? This is against all best practices, but I'm going to tell you what not to do first, okay? Because y'all are all adults and you will listen to the second option. See the word Acrobat up there at the top? Don't. Unless you want to remediate your PDF, don't do it. If you click on that, you get the option to create PDF. It gives you lots of questions, makes you feel like you're really being accessible, and then it's garbage. Okay, it's not garbage. It's just not as good as if you just go File, Save As, and save it as a PDF. On Windows, you go File, Save as PDF. Mac users, we go File, Save As. Be sure you've got the little circle checked that says Best for Accessibility. I change my file type to PDF. It defaults to whatever you picked the last time, so I always say Best for Electronic Accessibility. And I'm going to change the name of this and export. Now, I know this is a word class. Is it okay if I go into PDF for just 5 minutes? Okay. I just want to show you that all of those tags that we did properly in Word came across. So I'm going to open the PDF that I just saved. I'm going to try to find it first. Okay, bear with me. Save it someplace I can find it. It's in my downloads folder. It's a PDF. Export. I'm going to go to my downloads folder. That's really strange. I just saved this on my desktop. Surely I can find it there. Thank you all for your patience. There we go. Okay, so checking accessibility in a PDF. You have to have Adobe Acrobat Pro. You can't do these checks on the web version of Adobe. So just very quickly, under all tools, you're going to find Prepare for Accessibility. You might have to click View More if you've never clicked on it before, and then check accessibility, start checking. And I want to show you that all of our tags have carried forward. As soon as I find my cursor. Here we go. There's my H1, followed by an H2, my table of contents with my items. I've got my figure, another H2, P tags. Let's look at the table. We've got our header row, perfect. We've got our table data, that's good. And let's see if we go find our link. Here's our link. We've got our OBJR. So, you know, is it absolutely perfect? It's decent, okay? And compared to someone opening a PDF and there's no tags at all, you know, it's a much better experience for everybody. Okay. I know we could do bookmarks, there's other things we can do, but as a minimum, we as a university feel like this that I've shared with you today is something everyone is responsible to know. Every employee at UTA needs to know how to do this. Now, if you're a communicator, if you're a marketer, if you're someone that routinely communicates with students or alumni or faculty or new hires or potential hires, you have to do better. But this is where everybody is starting. Questions, comments? Online questions or comments? No?
I have a question related to PDF.
Okay,
Very dumb question.
no dumb questions. We're gonna get a PDF question.
So if I get a document in PDF
Mhm.
and I need to make that OCR. So we're just talking about it's like work, you can read it. and I OCR it and then I check it and it's all gibberish.
Mhm.
Is there an easy way to fix this, or do I have to manually?
Okay, assuming that there are no trademark or copyright legal issues. What I do is I export it to Word. The text actually exports pretty well, much better than whatever OCR is gonna do. Well, okay, it's not OCR. Yeah, I would go back to Word because I can style headings in seconds in Word and then save it as a PDF. Yes.
So I work for the governor's
Uh-huh.
office and we have our proclamations department. And they create the proclamations in this fancy writing that obviously is not accessible. And so then, but I also post these proclamations on our website.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure that they are accessible. So yeah, that's where
I think
I'm at.
for the website, you repeat it all as real text. And then, I mean, am I missing anything? That would solve the problem. That if you're just sharing a PDF, because I'm bad at PDF remediation, I have to go watch Chad's video to do it. I would type it up in Word, styled properly, save it as a PDF, combine the proclamation and my document into one, and mark the second one as decorative. So you get all the text, and I don't have to worry about trying to fix something I don't know how to fix. So we have 3 problems at UT Arlington that we don't know how to fix yet. And I'm sorry, you're hearing this from yesterday too. Org charts. And it's not that we don't know how to make an accessible org chart. We don't know how to make an accessible online org chart that an administrative assistant can update. That's the problem. Evacuation maps. We have evacuation maps for every floor of every building posted on our website. How do you make that make any sense if you don't know where you are in the building? Yeah, so we're struggling with that. And then the third one is in our music courses. We have PDF musical scores. I think what we're going to do is write up in Word the name, the composer, the date, the how many sections, the time stamp, the key signature, a link to an audio. Here's your professor's contact information if you need an accommodation. It's a musical school. And the one of the ones I looked at was 64 pages of musical scores. It had like 12 sections of musical instruments because it was orchestra music. You know, you could braille it. I'm not sure that's helpful. You know, most of the students that I have worked with that are blind that are in music courses learn by ear. So they want to hear their part and then they can sing it or play it. They don't want it brailled. So we don't know. I don't know yet. We're working on that. So those are our 3 challenges. If you have challenges, I'd love to hear what yours are as well, because we may have them too. What we don't have anymore is, when I first started this, it was all about math. Oh, math. But that's pretty much solved. Not by me. We have an excellent Center for Distance Education team. That's where the instructional designers live. And I mean, they are the experts at LaTeX and math type and blah, 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 stuff I don't know or understand, but it's like, no big deal. They do it. And when we look at our ally scores in Canvas, it is not our math and science courses that are at the bottom of the list. And I said it out loud who was, and all night I've been worried that someone's going to call me and ding me for outing the people with the worst ally scores. So if you were in my class yesterday, don't repeat what I said. I know it's out there recorded. Okay, it's way early. Sorry. Questions? Do you feel like I skipped anything I should have talked about? I hope what you gathered is it's just not that hard, right? It's deciding you're going to change. You're going to start using styles. And once you do, it's really not that hard. And I will admit, when I changed was when I hired a student worker that was blind, because all of a sudden, and I got to be much more vocal about, don't send me stuff that's not accessible. Don't leave her out. She speaks 5 languages and she's going to graduate and go to law school, and you better not. She's, she'll tell you. So get get everybody in the boat. Start today. If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. I did share with AccessU our process guides for both Mac and Windows. I'd be happy to hear from you.
The process guides are on Zoom?
They're gonna share however they share the recordings and things. They said it would take a few days.
Okay.
All right, anything online I need to address? One question. Okay. My company provides sample forms as Word documents. They're not functionally fillable like a PDF, except by manually typing information or printing the document. These include tables with blank cells. Yeah, that is not accessible. We do have HTML compatible style format on the back end. Yes, there are better ways. If I were to do it, I would make it an accessible fillable PDF form. They can still print it if they want, but for people who don't use printed forms, like people that use screen readers, they need an accessible electronic option. Making accessible fillable forms is not difficult. It's very time consuming. It's very tedious. Once you apply the fields, you have to go in and touch every form field 3 times. You have to go to properties, you have to tag it, and then you have to put it in the proper reading order. So, if it's a 1-page form, few hours. If it's a huge form like the Common App, piece of art. I have to tell you, I don't know who made that thing accessible, but oh my gosh, it's perfect. Common App, the Common App that students use to apply for colleges.
Oh.
Their website, terrible. Terrible, absolutely terrible. But if they can get to the form, they're fine. But yeah, it's in the proper reading order. Everything's got alt text and properties, and yeah, it's very good. So kudos to somebody who did that. Was that it online? Okay, all right. Well, again, I'm Laura Hopkins. I'm the EIR Accessibility Coordinator at UT Arlington. Don't hesitate to reach out if I can help in any way. Thank you.